Hello, everyone. Good evening and a very warm welcome to our fourth webinar leading up to the Vision Conference in Venice, which is about climate change and policies to combat climate change, which will start in Venice next week. Tonight, you are in the webinar that is about retrofitting cities, which play an important role in combating climate change, not only because the effects of climate change will accumulate in cities, as you know, the heating up of cities and the devastation of natural disasters is really very significant in cities, but also cities are experimental grounds and cities are places where citizen participation can really make a difference. So it's not only about technical solutions and making cities fit for the calamities of climate change, but also about intelligent social engineering. And I have the pleasure tonight to introduce a panel here of students who've done research in this, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. And I have discussions here who will comment on the research and on the concepts that will be presented. Among others, there's Christian Matti from the European Commission's Joint Research Center. He's a sustainability and innovation policy expert. The second discussant is Franz Anton Vermast. He's from the Amsterdam Smart City Project. He's a strategy advisor and an international smart city ambassador. And the students that I will introduce shortly are accompanied by Professor Enrica de Cian from Ca' Foscari University in Venice. And my name is Alexandra Borchardt. I'm a journalist and consultant and lead author of the EBU news report, Climate Journalism That Works. Very warm welcome. But first, let me introduce you to the mastermind of this all, Francesco Grillo of Vision Think Tank, founder of Vision Think Tank, director of Vision Think Tank, who will give us a few introductory remarks. The floor is yours, Francesco.
Thanks a lot, Alexandra. I am on a train. So I will not speak too loudly. I hope you can hear me. Enrique is walking, so I'm.
Well, the connection is not ideal, Francesco. So maybe you suffer from these spotty Wi-Fi connections.
You cannot hear me?
Now I can again. Yeah, it was a bit spotty.
Okay, all right. No, well, I'm on a train, as I said. So very briefly, this is the fourth webinar, not the third, on the road to the conference, which is going to happen next week in Venice. It is on, as you mentioned, Alexandra, is on cities retrofitting. I myself, I teach also at the Master Trasformative Sustainability, cioè Master Bocconi and Polimi, and I teach in one course called Design of Sustainable Cities. And Olga was one of the students last year joining the Dolomite conference. So I think it's one of the most interesting subtopics of climate change and sustainability. And I have here Train Italia, which is talking together with me to you people. And we just completed, for the purpose of this very conference, a paper on housing. We took as an example Italy, and I can anticipate that the market of housing does not make any sense whatsoever to somebody who insists to think a little bit rationally. It doesn't reflect at all this thing called climate change. but does not even reflect the normal supply and demand mechanism. And this is, by the way, this produce a big cost, especially on normal people like students that try to get a flat for living in a city like Venice. So it's a huge environmental but also economic problem. And I will stop here also because the connection is not great. Thank you very much, Alexandra.
Yeah, thank you, Francesco. Of course, we don't only have to reinvent mobility with better Wi-Fi connections on trains, but now we are turning to cities, to retrofitting cities, to develop new parts of cities in a sustainable manner, environmentally sound manner, and allow for citizen participation, which is absolutely important because we need public acceptance of climate change policies. So let me hand over to you students. There's Victoire and Yada, Giulio, Chiara, Lorenzo, Garima, Anna, and Andrea. And you told me that you will all present parts of it. So I'm curious to find out. And so you decide which order you will present in. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. Just a small clarification. First of all, I'm gonna share my screen. So is my screen visible?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. So first of all, we wanted to clarify that some of the names that you mentioned, former colleague, do not participate to the project. So as you can see here, we are six people. So 5 people from Ca' Foscari University of Venice and one from UAV, who is Eric Solmat. And yeah, we should also update the list of participants in the main poster. So said so, I will give the floor to the first presenter, Victoire.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this webinar today, in which we, the Group 3, will present you our work on the topic Cities Retrofitting, Tools for Engaging People so as to improve efficiency. And more specifically, we will be presenting our work, which focuses on inclusive retrofitting solution in Southern Europe. This is the structure of the presentation we're going to follow today. And started with the introduction, we first would like to clarify the main concepts of this topic and the scope of our work. Urban retrofitting refers to large-scale integrated intervention aims at enhancing the efficiency and sustainability of the built environment. And in our work, efficiency improvement refers to both energy efficiency, but also to social efficiency, taking into account existing socioeconomic inequalities and the issue of inclusiveness. The objective of our work are to identify successful retrofitting and inclusive retrofitting initiatives, and based on that, to formulate recommendation that can be transferred to similar contexts in Europe. To do so, we adopted a case study approach focusing on 2 cities, Athens and Barcelona, because both cities present very high climate risk, but also socioeconomic vulnerabilities with high level of cooling poverty. And they also have developed and implemented ambitious and inclusive climate plans that include very active citizen engagement component. So a few words about the problem that we're trying to address here. The starting point is that temperatures are increasing in Europe, as we know. It is the fastest warming continent in the world. And this translates into very critical public health issues, but also socioeconomic challenges. And one of the critical figures is that already today, heat is responsible for almost 50,000 deaths annually in Europe. The second issue is that cities actually exacerbate existing vulnerabilities, and they act as threat multipliers because of multiple factors, including very high population density, old buildings, but also physical phenomena such as the well-known urban heat island effect. And in this context, cooling poverty is a raising concern. Today, 1 European in 5 is unable to keep their homes at a comfortable temperature in the summer, and this goes up to 50% in certain European cities. And of course, vulnerable populations are more affected by this phenomenon, including low-income groups and the elderly. And finally, wanted to stress that in order to develop inclusive and durable retrofitting initiative, we need citizen participation, as stated earlier. And today, key barriers to engagement remain, in particular with regard to low awareness, limited institutional trust, and also difficulties to reach vulnerable populations. And now I'm going to leave the floor to Gary Malad, is going to explain our methodology in order to address this problem. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Hi, my name is Garima, and thank you, Victor, for presenting and explaining the idea behind this work really well. So I would like to bring your attention to methodology that we have designed. And here we have 3 key elements. The first is to define the geographical landscape of our work, for which we have first defined a concrete rationale as to why we have chosen Barcelona and Athens. We have explored both existing socioeconomic vulnerabilities as well as temperature profile for both the cities. What we found is that energy poverty is one of the most pressing issues when it comes to Barcelona, with 24% of households at high risk of energy poverty. And this is not only distributed heterogeneously across different districts in Barcelona, but also across different population groups. For instance, females are more vulnerable to energy poverty and are at high risk. Looking at the temperature distribution, we saw that there has been a tremendous increase in surface temperature in Barcelona from merely 2012 to 2015, with certain districts getting impacted the most. For instance, now Baris, which is also quite at high risk of energy poverty. Moving on to Athens. Here we again explored the temperature profile, and we found that, again, similar to the case of Barcelona, the surface temperature has been quite high in the last few years in Athens, and is also heterogeneously distributed across the city, with certain districts recording high temperature as compared to the others. One interesting thing that we really found about Athens is that there has been quite a tremendous increase in the urban density. And we saw that the impervious surface coverage in Athens has gone up from 17.7% in 1945 to 68.5% in 2000. And which could also be one of the reasons why, along with increasing temperatures, rising intensity and frequency of heat waves, the urban heat island effect is quite concrete in certain districts of the city. Then the second element of our methodology is to essentially identify key initiatives that have been successfully implemented in the 2 cities. And to map these initiatives, we have defined 4 thematic areas. The first is buildings, second is public infrastructure, fourth is public awareness, and third is public awareness, and fourth is social inclusion. Buildings and public infrastructure focus mainly on physical retrofitting and renovation, whereas public awareness and social inclusion initiatives focus more on equity and behavioral aspect of the initiatives. For buildings, we have identified initiatives which focus on housing, commercial facilities, as well as public buildings. For public infrastructure, we have focused on roads, public transport, and other common open spaces. And public awareness, we focus more on participatory aspect of the initiatives, keeping in mind the coverage of citizens in the two cities. And finally, in social inclusion, we have focused on initiatives that have been implemented with an objective of equitable access to resources. Finally, the third element of our methodology is, can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So here we have conducted our analysis in 4 key steps. The first is to basically, of course, shortlist the 2 cities on the basis of their demographic, socioeconomic, and climate profile. And then finally, to screen 34 retrofitting initiatives in these 2 cities. We have assessed these initiatives on the basis of their broader objectives, dimensions, the targeted vulnerabilities, financing mechanisms, as well as stakeholders involved and beneficiaries. And finally, out of these 34, we shortlisted a dozen of flagship initiatives, and we assessed them on the basis of tangible outcomes, which are quantified, as well as on the basis of the citizen engagement process. And finally, to assess these dozen flagship initiatives, we have adopted 3 lens approach. The first is multidimensionality, which basically focuses on thematic areas addressed that I've spoken about in the previous slide. And then the stakeholder engagement process, who are the people that are involved, who are benefited, etc. And the financing mechanism, focusing on how these initiatives were funded. And finally, on the basis of this transversal analysis from our work, we have defined certain recommendations that would be the key takeaways of our work. So now I would invite Anna to present the next step. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Garima. Can you hear me? Okay. So now we will do a deep dive into the holistic approach that we have been using for studying our initiatives. So the first step of our analysis has been a multidimensional approach, since we believe that systemic cooling poverty, since it is a complex issue, has to be addressed following an integrated approach, comprehensive of both addressing both material and immaterial deprivation with respect to adaptive capacity to it. So with this lens of analysis, we wanted to understand which are the thematic areas addressed by our initiatives, and which are the policy areas prioritized in the 2 cities. The second lens that we have been adopting is the citizen engagement one, that is devoted to understand who are the stakeholders, but also when they are engaged in the process and how. And this is critical and important for fostering social innovation, but also being sure to leave no one behind and building a effective implementation strategy. The final lens that we have been adopting is the financial one, in order to have an idea on how the initiatives were funded, for understanding which can be the mechanisms for fostering equitable and durable retrofitting. So now I will guide you through the multidimensional analysis. We have prepared 2 Sankey diagrams, one for each city. Here you can see the one regarding the city of Barcelona. So on the left, you can see the initiatives, and the height of each box represent the number of thematic areas that have been covered by each initiative, while on the right, the boxes represent the key thematic areas, and the height of each box represent the number of times each thematic area has been addressed in the flagship initiatives that we have selected. So, for example, for what regards Barcelona, the results are that social inclusion and public awareness have been preponderantly addressed with initiatives, giving space for collective, for nudging collective behavioral change and fostering the inclusion of vulnerable and marginalized communities across the city. So giving more relevance to the immaterial component of systemic cooling poverty. Instead, for what concerns the city of Athens, we have noted that they have given the priority to the thematic areas public awareness and public infrastructure. So in this case, the attention of the municipal council of Athens have been directed towards a more tangible interventions, giving a preponderant importance to addressing material deprivation. Of course, both cities have been putting the attention to participatory process, and now we will go through the stakeholder engagement lens. So for our analysis, we wanted to understand who are the key stakeholders in our initiatives. So the leaders and promoters of participatory processes have been mainly city councils, also with the support of regional bodies and European institutions that have been relying on partnerships with academia and companies and NGOs. The beneficiaries and the co-authors of the initiatives are citizen and local communities, while the enablers are banks and European Union bodies, other than companies. Why it is crucial to include participation into urban level initiatives in order to foster procedural justice, which aims at adopting a transparent and inclusive decision-making framework. And it also gives space to increase the acceptability of the project and to ensure that local needs are addressed. Now we will go to the next slide, please. Thank you. We will study this flowchart that we have extrapolated by the initiative for climate action transparency, and that we have readapted to understand at which stage of the processes citizens should be engaged and how. Basically, the suggestion is to divide the participatory process in 5 main steps. And the first stage is devoted to the identification of the stakeholders and their interest in the problem. This is done through the use of interviews or stakeholder mapping strategies. The second stage of the stakeholder engagement process is devoted to the diagnosis and the problem setting phase. So in order to identify local needs and challenges. And this is done also through the use of surveys, but also through neighborhood level involvement. The third phase is regards the co-creation process of solution and implementation strategies. And this is done through the use of living labs, assemblies, and workshops. while the fourth stage is the one regarding implementation that needs to ensure a successful problem, a successful way to address the problems previously identified. And this is done through tools like apps or on-site stations. While the final step, and I think this play a pivotal role in the participatory process, is the monitoring phase, in which it is possible to evaluate and understand if the implementation stage was effective and how the process can be adjusted. And this is done through territorial monitoring committees and participatory evaluation methods. Of course, building multidimensional approaches and also including citizen and fostering inclusion needs to rely on solid funding mechanisms. So now I will leave the floor to my colleague Giulio, that will guide you through the financial analysis.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I mean, this is impressive work. Bear in mind, maybe you could speed up a little, because we actually allocated 15 minutes for the student presentations, and we are well beyond
Yes,
that. Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
we will. We will. So let me walk you through the last lenses of our analysis, where during our map activities of the different initiatives in the two cities, we summarize the main funding mechanism that we found. So most of the initiatives were funded by grants. So with public resources given by the municipality or at the regional level, or directly from European bodies. Then other kind of mechanism, funding mechanisms could be loans directly from multilateral banks, such as the European Investment Banks or the CEB. Then eventually we found some concrete initiatives, the possibility of public and private partnership. And in less cases, we found the implementation of directly involved private investment. So the private sector that puts its money into specific project for building specific private or public spaces. So in order to have a better idea of what the kind of mechanism tools worked and how did they where the money went, we built these simple matrices where we try to map on the x-axis the rivalry excludability dimension, let's say. So on the two edges, we have public good, which is not, of course, the consumption of that specific good is not excludable from other consumers. And on the other edge, we have a private good, right? So, and we tried to map each initiative also in terms of possible measurable benefits, monetary benefits that can arise during its lifetime. As you can see, most of the grants, so public money, are directly into the low quadrant of this matrix. And of course, it does make sense, because public money should be invested in public infrastructure, in public goods. That this is also a kind of a dilemma of environmental economics, that the direct benefits cannot be measured. So, and on the other side, we have other kind of consideration that makes sense as well. For example, the investments on private goods will definitely have counterfactual, let's say, in direct monetary benefits. While on the middle section of the y-axis, we have this indirect but measurable monetary benefits, which can be interpreted as avoided cost or avoided expenses, which, for example, can be the saving in electricity consumption or the saving in hospitalization. So for the sake of time, I will directly go through the key takeaways that we gathered during this analysis. So first, what clearly stands out is the need for an integrated and locally tailored approach. Urban retrofitting cannot be treated as purely technical exercise. And so the most effective initiatives are those that connect mitigation, adaptation, and social inclusion. And therefore, our recommendation is to foster strong coordination across sectors and governance levels. Eventually, we can also make some concrete examples from the initiatives that we mapped. Second, citizen engagement and behavioral change are truly the backbone of lasting transformation. Sorry. And thanks to our analysis, the projects that are more legitimate, more accepted, and ultimately are more effective when citizens are directly involved. So we recommend to institutionalizing participatory processes, diversifying engagement formats. Third, none of this can happen, of course, without strong governance in the institutional capacity. And this is also reflected by the financing mechanism because, of course, grants or a loan directly funded from the European Investment Bank needs different layer of auditing activities or governance structure. And finally, the question of financing mechanism. So most current projects still rely on public subsidies, which are of course essential and are the backbone of public infrastructure, but are not sufficient for large-scale transformation. So the next step, in our opinion, is to move towards hybrid and performance-based models, so relying more on the KPI, for example, on avoided costs, combining grants, loans, or private and public partnership. And this also would allow to attract private capital where possible, of course. And actually, the very last key takeaway is that this project showed, and also we found ourselves in a very limited space of action because we didn't find immediate tool to assess, to classify the different initiatives. So in order for the policymaker, for the stakeholders, in order to choose which initiatives should be implemented, there is the need of multidisciplinary and integrated tools. Thank you for your attention.
Wow, thank you so much for this nuanced approach and very tangible recommendations and solutions to customize the different approaches, to integrate the institutions and to expand the mechanisms of funding. And let me directly hand over to Professor Enrica de Sian at Foscari University. And yeah, I would also ask each discussant to take about 5 minutes so that we can maybe leave a little bit of space for a Q&A in the end. Thank you so much. And Enrica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alexandra, and thank you all for the impressive work you've been doing and presenting. So I'll maybe share some questions and comments that can be helpful also for the next week discussion. First of all, so you didn't have time to go into the details of the case studies and the different initiatives that I think it's more than 20, or anyway, you've been reviewing lots of projects. First question is whether your analysis, takeaways, and recommendations are based only on stories of success, or whether you also encountered stories of failures, let's say initiatives or projects which did not work out well. And is there anything we can learn also from those initiatives which perhaps failed? The second question that came to me when I was listening to the presentation, so you've been talking about stakeholders and you showed on the slide different types, from citizen to mayors, city council members. Would you be able to sort of rank, even qualitatively, the importance of different stakeholders? Who really makes a difference in turning these initiatives into successful projects? Then the third question is about assessing the impacts and the effectiveness of initiatives. How can we say that an initiative has been successfully driving a city towards more resilience, toward higher resilience? And then maybe a suggestion for the last point, the last two slides in which you summarize takeaways and recommendations. They were tangible, but also a bit general, I would say. I don't know if, yes, if you can, make a couple of examples, a few examples of the most important takeaways. But yes, I will stop here and give you the floor. Maybe you don't need to answer all the questions. We will give the floor to the discussants and then we see. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Enrica. I would also suggest to give the floor to the other two discussants, and then maybe that the students get back to this later. And maybe you could also stop screen sharing, because then we can see more of each other, which would be much nicer. Yeah, let me give the floor to Christian Matti, who's from the European Commission's Joint Research Center. He's a sustainability and innovation policy expert. And Christian, please, your comments are very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to interact with this project and these students on this topic that relates very much to what we are doing. So I'm going to try to put myself and play the role of a provocateur, guys. So I'm not going to give you questions or the methodology. I'm going to challenge you. So in order to do that, I'm going just to give you a kind of a very strong starting point. The current European climate risk assessment have several pillars, but one very important one is competitiveness and opportunities. So what I really miss from your study is the innovation opportunities. Where is the value created? It seems to be that it's very much problem solving oriented, but not opportunity driven. What is the opportunity in retrofitting? Not only for the citizens in terms of the quality of life, but also in shaping the ecosystem as part of what you are doing there. And that is particularly important for me because when I see your thematic areas, I still do not understand, but you have building, public infrastructure, public awareness, and social inclusion. What about the ecosystem type of thematic areas that are connected to retrofitting? What about when you think about more technical thing, but what about when you think of natural-based solutions, or there are other ecosystem thematic areas that are connected to retrofitting when you start thinking about the buildings and the nature, buildings and kind of services and economic activities. You retrofit and you have public mixed use, okay? And then you have jobs and you have other services. So I really miss that particular aspect. And when you think about companies and partners, in line with the other question is that the rebalance of the opportunities, how these guys is bringing some kind of inputs about making the needs of the citizens also an opportunities to improve the quality of life and the job opportunities. Retrofitting is an investment in changing the shape of the city and the neighborhood. So it's not just about climate adaptation. And that brings to me the discussion that we are having about resilience is social, economic and climate resilience. So if you miss the economic, you are retrofitting houses for people that need to have jobs and services and going to school. So how retrofitting is connecting to connect this kind of needs with kind of the transformation of the neighborhood and so on, kind of a more systemic aspect. So thinking about opportunities, opening up these thematic areas, and last but not least, and this is going against a little bit this kind of potentially a more economic of climate change approach that you take, okay, is that you use funding mechanisms. And if you dig into the table that you have in the paper, I really found more attractive options to think about that. Like, for example, when you think about the public-private partnership, what about business models for retrofitting? And funding mechanism is just an instrument. What about the kind of things that you can do in terms of energy services, district solution, natural-based solution, and then funding mechanism is just a financial mechanism, but it's not the solution. It's just the money. Where's the money come from? But it's not the long-term business model to make retrofitting happens. So I really think that the kind of approach for doing retrofitting based on financial mechanism, it's kind of lacking the kind of the systemic aspect of the transformation that you are doing in the district or in the neighborhood or in the building and so on. And there is a lot of opportunities there to go beyond where's the money come from. That is more where's the value coming from or how we create value there. Thank you very much. I hope it's helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christian, and I hope you all took notes, and then we can have a discussion in the end. So here the comment was, where is the opportunity-driven approach? Where are the business models? Yeah, where are the innovation opportunities? And in the next discussion is Franz Anton Vermast. Welcome, Franz. Anton from Amsterdam, from the Amsterdam Smart City Project. He's a strategy advisor and international smart city ambassador from Amsterdam. Franz Anton, looking forward to your comments, please.
Thank you. As I'm not an academic, so I'll just have some practical comments and some practical questions. You're talking about citizens' engagement, but how do you choose the citizens in these neighborhoods? And how can you make sure you will have an inclusive approach to all these citizens and have that on a non-discriminatory base? The other question I have is you have these PPPs, so you're working with companies and with public entities. You gather a lot of data, but who's owning that data and what is being done with that data? The other question I have is, as Christian was mentioning already, a business case, I would more look at from a perspective of a value case. And you're only talking about loans, grants, and subsidies. And why are you not more focusing on investments and bearing in mind that when you do investments, especially from a public entity, that the return on investment doesn't always need to be financial? And how do you measure these intangibles or non-tangibles returns on investments? So that would be my questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Franz Anton. And I hope you all took notes because there have been several questions here. First, Enrica asked, is there also some learning from failure? What didn't work, which is always an interesting thing, conclusions to draw from failure. She also missed some more specific recommendations. She felt it was too general, and please, Enrica, correct me if I missed another important point. Then there is the comment by Christian about where are the opportunities, where are the innovation opportunities and the business models, and yeah, and also Franz Anton also asked, why didn't you focus more on investment, and also who is owning the data, which is important because data is also always important not only for privacy reasons, but also to learn from certain aspects. Can you share that with other communities? So maybe you picked up more questions even. So who would like to respond to that? Who would like to start?
I can start. First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for your really valuable feedback. It's going to be extremely useful for us to improve our work by the time of the conference. So thank you for that. And regarding the first question, I'm not going to tackle them all. I'm going to leave the space to my colleagues as well. But to answer the first question, yes, initially we tried to identify the most successful retrofitting initiatives in both cities. But of course, through the analysis, we also encountered some of the limitations of these initiatives. And I think it was really valuable for us also to learn from these failures. For instance, one striking example was the Barcelona Climate Assembly, which on paper seems like a perfect initiative, a perfect example of citizen engagement for climate adaptation. And actually, by doing some research, we realized that there were some important limitations, in particular with regard to the inclusion of most vulnerable population and marginalized groups, despite active efforts from the city council to include these populations. And so one of the key learning elements here is the importance of having an entire cycle of citizen engagement that also includes the monitoring part, because this allows to also assess the limitations and the potential failures of an initiative and to be able to adjust for the next cycle. So yeah, that was to answer the first question.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. That's really an important aspect. Participatory challenges there are. Who would like to comment next and engage with some of these questions?
Yeah, I could take the points well taken by Christian, and you made exactly the point in this regard, because first of all, it is not for a justification, of course. We kind of followed the constraints imposed by the task of this project, right? Because we had to start from the problems. So we had to start from the origin and trying to give the solution from those. But this changing the approach in taking consideration the opportunity, and this is also, I mean, this is a very innovative way of thinking that is completely far away from neoclassical theories of economics, where we are used to know all the resources given to climate change efforts as a cost, but not as an investment. Definitely, the whole, let's say, approach should be changed, okay? Because what we thought could be as what could be considered as a cost actually are I would say capex, capital expenditure, pure capital expenditure. So the way we account for this point should be completely changed. But eventually, for example, in the matrices that we build, changing the classification system of each initiative for example, in a scale of innovation of the business model, that could be an interesting way of thinking, of new thinking the methodologies. Then regarding the point of changing the entire ecosystem, I don't remember them by heart, all the initiatives, but I reckon that there are some nature-based solutions. But maybe the system using the systemic lens in this specific specific problem. And when I'm talking about this systemic lens, I'm talking about the individual, so all the interaction, citizens, the stakeholders, so citizens, stakeholders, municipalities, and so on, and their interactions. It's so hard to find some nature-based solution that at the European level, because this is our perimeter, that actually are systemic throughout the city, throughout all the stakeholders. So that may be a limitation that we should take in consideration, but we didn't find any specific initiative on that. And then I would take also the point of Franz Anton, if my colleagues allows me. Who's owning the data? Well, that's the specific limitation that we had, because we hadn't had the opportunity to really conduct a quantitative assessment on each specific key thematic area, even the most suitable one, which is the financing, the finance key thematic area. It was so hard to find a specific, detailed balance sheet of each project. And the initiatives that are conducted, that are implemented by the private sector, and this is the edge, are the most difficult ones to find proper data. Okay, because the data are private, right? And by consequence of that, on the other side, public fundings are, and this is a nice point because we eventually citizens can check how the money are spent, are public, because are funded by the European bodies, are funded by municipalities. So there are some sort of processes that needs to be respected, of course. But still, the point of assessing in a qualitative manner their business model, this could add a great value added in our analysis, because as you said, at least you can have an idea on how the business is sustainable over life. So how the public money can actually generate some kind of measured benefits. That's why we put as a criteria in order to sustain themselves.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else who wants to comment on what the three discussants said?
I would just like to quickly cover up the first point by Christian on competitiveness and innovation aspects of the initiatives that we have covered so far. So while I agree that we really haven't spoken about the job opportunities that have been created across these initiatives, and it would be nice to follow this perspective as well. And maybe in the final presentation, we could highlight the opportunity aspect as well. While some of the initiatives do have these opportunity element attached to them, while most of them do not, because we were more focused on addressing basically shortlisting initiatives that have addressed the vulnerabilities to rising heat waves in both the cities, rather than focusing more on opportunities. And I think, and I agree that it would be nice to have a fifth thematic area on, I don't know, ecosystem-based initiatives or nature-based solutions. Maybe Jara wanted to add something on that, but it's a point well taken. I think it would be nice to have one additional thematic area and have focus more on job opportunities as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Christian, for dropping some material in the chat that the students can use. And Francesco is raising his hand. Let's see what Train Italia has to say.
First of all, I would like to introduce you, Olga. Olga, to speak up because you joined the Dolomite conference last year and you can probably help. Probably one very quick point. There is to me, frankly, a super huge issue that we cannot underestimate. I'm not an expert of housing, but looking to the numbers that we just put together, again, I mentioned this thing before with this paper on the number of houses in a country like Italy, in a city like Venice, in a city like Milan, and the trend in the price of renting or buying houses, people, I must say, it does not make any sense. Just two very quick numbers, okay? Venice used to have almost 180,000 inhabitants in 1951. In 2018, it had only 50,000 inhabitants. And even if you consider the tourists, okay, we have something like 30 million touristic presence per year. We are talking an additional 40,000 people being in Venice in a day on average, which means that probably most likely we have something like 30–40% of the houses which are completely empty in a city like Venice, and yet the prices are completely not accessible to, first of all, students. So we have a huge problem of a market which is not functioning properly, and I don't think it's just the case of Venice. It's a case of quite a number of European countries, and this is something which is a rather huge thing to consider when we are talking about cities retrofitting. Olga, do you want to say something, introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Francesco. And thanks you all. Thanks the Vision organizer for inviting me back to Dolomite Challenge conference. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olga Murolo, as Francesco kindly said before, and I recently graduated from the Master of Science Transformative Sustainability. And currently I'm a knowledge analyst and research assistant at the SDA Bocconi. Last year, I was part of the same problem-solving group of yours. So number 3, together with Eleonora Variolo and Marco Izzoner, I wanted to mention. And we worked together on a research project about European retrofitting, building retrofitting. So basically, our work addressed the urgency of improving the energy efficiency of European building stocks by identifying the main economic, but also behavioral and regulatory barriers that slow down the renovation initiative. Then we proposed a proprietary and also kind of innovative cluster-based incentive framework to tailor financial and policy tools to each national context. So basically, our idea was to combine a bundle of financial incentives and behavior with some behavioral insights to make renovation decisions more appealing and also effective to the public, in order to design a kind of a realistic yet flexible a model capable of accelerating the large-scale urban retrofit that Europe urgently needs. So we delved into the main theories and findings of behavioral economics to understand how this renovation decision often stall, especially now with EU priorities kind of shifting towards geopolitical tension and, as Francesco was saying, price volatility. Having said that, this year I'm very excited to be back in a tutoring role for the new groups and see how our you students have expanded our research. So I do see a clear and fair kind of continuum between this edition. And I can say that each year seems to add a new layer of depth and perspectives to such a crucial topic. So thank you again for having me, and congratulations team for your work. I look forward to hearing more of your research at the conference, and of course, feel free to reach out to me for whatever necessity you might have.
Thank you so much, Olga. And we are at the end of our 1-hour webinar, and that was a nice leading over to the conference next week and an invitation to engage with each other to discuss the topic even further. We will have 2 more webinars in the coming days. Francesco, do you have some final words for this one?
Yeah, we will have a webinar on energy transition on Thursday with Sta Bocconi. And last but not least, the one on loss and damage, which also will be very crowded, with Luis on Friday. They are both at 6 o'clock, if I'm not wrong, right? And I really hope that you can join also these other webinars, and we will see you in Venice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for the great work, and we'll see each other in Venice. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.